If you haven't heard the news already, Alek Manoah has been called up for this Friday's game against the Detroit Tigers, and a lot of fans, it sparked some outrage, have not been happy with that decision. I mean, is he ready to come back? Is this a desperation move for the Toronto Blue Jays? We're going to break down the real reason as to why he is getting the call for Friday night. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And of course, the big news yesterday out of Jays land was that Alek Manoah was getting called up for this Friday's game against the Detroit Tigers. And of course, I want to talk a little bit about the game yesterday as well. I mean, good win for the Blue Jays yesterday. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Finding his power stroke yet again, and squeaking by a win against the White Sox is not what you want to do, but you take them any way they come nowadays, Nick.
Yeah, the Manoah news is the big thing, but yeah, shout out to the Blue Jays for getting that win, and shout out to you guys for tuning into the stream yesterday when we broke the news. Support's been great. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. But like you said, the Manoah news broke yesterday completely out of nowhere, and John Schneider was the guy who kind of said it. And there's a few reasons we'll get into that. We speculated a little bit on the live stream when the news just broke, but John Schneider had a chance to speak out about it, as well as some insight from a couple of reporters. So let's just get right into it. And John Schneider, speaking on Alek Manoah coming back this Friday, said he has made a minor tweak to get back to his 2022 mechanics and has satisfied the checklist the Blue Jays have laid out. Quote, if we feel like he's ready to come back and contribute, we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger. It's been pulled. So, Peter, I have a couple more screenshots with a couple other reasons, but I guess I can get your quick thoughts on what are your thoughts are on this here. He's made a couple of tweaks clearly, even though it's only been, I mean, it's been a month, but it's only been a couple of starts. But I don't know. It's very, very shocking, but who knows?
It's a very risky move for the front office because, like I said in yesterday's live stream, you're walking that line. You got to remember that he's 25 and you don't want to stunt his development. You want him to be good for a very long time. But you also got to remember that this is a results league and you got to win right now. And with the current core of players that you have, who knows when your next chance is going to be to win it all. So you got to have this guy in your lineup one way or another, but it does feel a bit rushed to me, and that's why this feels like a desperation move. This feels like a kind of make or break move for the front office. And to me, the real reason is because Ross Atkins and everyone else that is employed by the Toronto Blue Jays is feeling some sort of pressure here to get the job done, and they just haven't done that thus far.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people on Twitter are saying. It's what the fans are saying is Ross Atkins feels like he might be on the hot seat coming soon, and he needs to make a big move, and this was his big move, which was of course calling up Alek Manoah. And I think another reason could be that they want to see what they have ahead of the trade deadline. That's another thing. Is Alek Manoah has been a guy, like we discussed yesterday, Cy Young caliber last year. This year has been completely different. But the question that keeps coming up is how much change can you make to your mechanics in 1 month down with only 2 starts against real hitters? And that's something that we'll have to wait to see for not only Friday but going forward as well. And a couple other things from Hazel May here said Alek Manoah is scheduled to arrive in Chicago tomorrow to join the team, and John Steiner followed up and said he's champing at the bit to be back around the guys and back out competing at the highest level. So he was appreciative of the news. And one quick note here, which is very, very interesting, and Ben Nicholson Smith, it says, in all likelihood, the absence will delay Manoah's path to arbitration. With a full year of service, he would have been well positioned to become a Super 2 player. Essentially, they gain a year of control over Manoah if everything goes well, and they want that. But I don't think that's the reason they did it, but it is something to note. But I think you hit it right on the head there. The reason is Ross Atkins is feeling pressure, and they want to see what they have ahead of the trade deadline, because it could be Ross Atkins' last trade deadline if they don't make the playoffs.
And Nick, is it as simple as just being a mechanical adjustment that was holding Alek Manoah
I
back?
think it's
I don't
more.
think so, man. I think it's more than that. I think it goes deeper than that. And even though he started 2 games and he was down there for a month in the Florida Complex League, is it enough time for him to get back to what he used to be? I mean, time will tell. If he comes back and he contributes and he has like a mid 4 ERA, a low 4 ERA, then that's a deadline acquisition in itself because you haven't had that version of Alek Manoah all season long. You've had a high 6 ERA for the better part of a couple months there. So if he comes up and if he performs, then that's a deadline acquisition for Ross Atkins. That's a box checked right there. And you could say the same thing with Hyun-Jin Ryu's on his way back, Chad Green as well. So maybe the Jays don't need to be that aggressive on the trade market, and that's why they're kind of pulling the trigger on a move a little bit earlier.
And Ross Atkins is all kind of falls back on the front office here, because if they had more depth at AAA, If they made more moves in the
That's right.
offseason to acquire depth to AAA, they wouldn't be rushing. At least I don't think they'd be rushing Alek Manoah back after just 1 month, which sounds like not super short, but he only had 2 starts, which is the big thing, and they had no one in AAA who was really ready. Trevor Richards did a great job. Bowden Francis also did a very good job, but neither of them are long-term options at the starter role. And they needed Trevor Richards back in the actual bullpen, and they needed to stop taxing their bullpen. And because of the lack of depth, Ross Atkins kind of cornered himself. He had to send Manoah down, and then they may have pulled the emergency alarm a bit early here, bringing him back up. But I don't know if Ross Atkins, from a job perspective, necessarily had a chance to do anything else.
If you The way I look at it is that, like it or not, Alec Manoa is a part of this team, and he's a part of this team's future. Now, he's been good ever since he's come up to the big leagues. He's never dealt with any adversity. He got kicked in the face this year, and he didn't know how to respond. I do think he'll go back to what he used to be, and I truly hope that he does, because that version of Alek Manoah is so much fun to watch, and that version is something that the Blue Jays desperately need on this team. They have no life. They look like they're just lifeless at times. And Alek Manoah is so exuberant, and he just brings that energy to the ballpark every time he's out there. So maybe they're looking at it that way as well. They need that infusion of energy from Alek Manoah, and that'll help their chances as well. But I'm feeling confident about it. If the Jays think that he's ready to come up, and they saw something that he tweaked and something that he changed that indicates he's ready, then I guess we got to trust him, because we're not in there. We're not at the Florida Complex League. We're not looking at the data. We're not looking at the advanced analytics. So we don't know exactly how he's progressed in the month that he's been down there. But if the Jays believe he's ready, then he better bring it on Friday.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like you said, they're the guys who are watching. We don't see him. So he could have been, and again, it kind of points back to that Florida Complex League start where he gave up 11 or 12 earned runs. Clearly, at this point, that was just a process thing, and the Jays don't care about the results, because they call him up just a week or two later to face, albeit a very poor offensive team, in the Detroit Tigers right before the All-Star break, rather than waiting till after the All-Star break and getting him a couple of starts in. A lot rides on this start Friday for Alek Manoah, and we talked about this off camera and on our stream as well. I don't think Manoah's going to get sent down the rest of the season unless he has an absolutely worse than even what he was doing before. At the very least, he'll go into maybe a bullpen role, but I think they called him up now. There's no chance they send him back down in the near future, so hopefully against the Detroit Tigers, heading into the All-Star break, he can find his pitches and do well and be confident, because his confidence was definitely lacking before he left, and hopefully it's back.
Yeah, Nick, the Jays front office has made their move here, and this is definite. This is it. He's going to stay with the big league club, whether he pitches well or not. I mean, if he's not good, then they're going to throw him in the bullpen, just like they did with Yusei Kikuchi last season. And I can't believe we're having this conversation about Manoah this late in the season. It just you could never predicted this to have happened before the start of the year. But yeah, he's here to stay, and the Toronto Blue Jays made their bed. Now they got to sleep in it. So if he doesn't perform, they're just going to have to eat it. He's going to have to eat it, and he's going to have to figure it out as they go. There's no more sending him back down. They think he's ready. They think he's ready to come back up and make an impact. So he's here to stay, Nick.
And if nothing else, it makes for a very, very exciting Friday night. So that'll wrap up the video. Hopefully, Alek Manoah will go out there and get us a much-needed win. And hopefully the Jays win tonight. And hopefully we'll see you for tomorrow's video. See you then.
Thanks.